Hi, so we're going to have a little look at, I'm just going to move this microphone, excuse me a second. Okay, we're going to have a little look today at working in Photoshop, working with RGB channel splitting, and we're going to use a wave filter as well. Okay, so first things first, I've got an image here, layer 0, it's called my background image, and you'll notice that there's a little tiny icon. Just highlight that icon just there in the bottom right hand corner of the thumbnail, telling me that this image is in fact, this layer has already been converted to a smart object. If yours hasn't, then please do so, and you do that by just right clicking on the layer, and you should be able to find convert to smart object there. Okay, so just a right click, convert to smart object. We're going to be using the smart object because it has a whole bunch of benefits, some of which will become apparent as we're going through it. One of the primary ones that we're going to use here is we can do a thing called replacing content, so which means that everything that we do to this image at some various point down the line where you've spent half an hour editing an image and you think, well, actually I've got another version which I now prefer, and rather than doing all that work again, you can just swap one image out for the other while maintaining all the procedures and adjustments, etc., that you've already made to the image. So we're going to work with smart objects. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that layer once, twice, 3 times. I'm just using this shortcut Control and J to do it. You could also just drag the layer down onto this icon, the new layer icon. I'm going to rename those layers R, G, and B, obviously for the 3 channels that we looked at in a previous video, the red, green, and blue channels. Okay, so just going to double click on each of these layers individually, pulling up the layer style menu, and I'm going to turn off the green and blue channels for the red one, or the R. I'm going to turn off the red and blue for the green, and I'm going to turn off the red and green for the blue. Okay, so just to make sure that you understand what's going on there, so basically if I turn off the background image and highlight just one layer at a time, you'll see that's the red channel, that's the green channel, and that's the blue channel. And by mixing them together, you get your RGB, which is your standard use. Okay, so I'm going to do a little thing here on one channel at a time, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight a little bit of, select a part of the image, so I'm going to use the marquee selection tool, which the pop-up menu shows you has a shortcut of M, really useful. So M on the keyboard pulls up the marquee selection. I'm just going to select that part of the image. That's all I want to work with. And I'm going to just work on the red channel to begin with. So go up to the filters menu, go to my distort and wave, and in here we've got 3 types of distortion available: the sine wave, the triangle, and the square. This is just to be experimented with, but for the sake of this experiment, I'm just going to stick with the square option. And I'm going to look at the maximum wavelength at 999. Now you'll see you've got a little preview there, so the wavelength gets shorter and shorter and shorter towards this end, and then I'm lengthening it out. And then I've got the same, but this time with the amplitude, so going the other way, I've got maximum and minimum. And then I've got the scale, and in this instance I only want to influence the image on the horizontal, so I'm just using the horizontal scale. So just saying OK to that. I actually applied it twice accidentally, so I'm just removing all those waves. So in doing so, I have a red channel wave distortion affecting just that part of the image here on the right hand side. Now, which looks fine. It's exactly what I need. Now, the only thing I want to concern myself with at this point is the harsh beginning point of the filter here. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm just going to duplicate that red layer one more time. So Control J, and on the bottom duplication I'm just going to delete the filters and in fact clear them completely, and I'll just call that one, I'll leave that one as red, so R, and we'll rename this one and we'll call it R Wave. Okay, just so we can easily tell the difference. Now I'm going to just turn off the red layer for a moment, and on the R Wave layer I'm going to put on a layer mask, and I'm going to use the gradient tool to just click and drag out a gradient here. And what that does is it fades the effect of the wave, and this is obviously up to you how you wish to fade it, how abruptly or smoothly you wish to fade it. But you'll see that it also takes out all the other red channel data as well, which is not what I want. So to compensate for that, I have my red channel underneath, and I've turned that on. The red channel data is reinstalled, but now I also have the filter above, so now I can see a little bit more clearly where that fade begins and starts. And now I've got a split from the right hand side, and I'm using an alpha mask. I'll keep saying alpha mask, I mean layer mask. I'm thinking about these, but we'll come to these another time. These are in the channels. So there we have it. I have a smart filter using the wave, so up to filters, distort, and here's our wave settings. I've got these settings affecting just the red channel. Very useful. Okay, so what can we do with that now? Okay, so I'm just going to highlight the green layer, and same process, filter, distort, wave, change the settings, look at the wavelength, and again I'm just going to work on the horizontal and say OK to that. Okay, so now I'm only cutting into disrupting with the wave filter the green layer. The red layer that was the kind of like copy from the top, I'll just highlight it, is still intact. There's the red layer disruption. There's the green layer added. We still have our blue layer sitting underneath. The background won't make any difference. You turn it on and off. That's just there for kind of insurance, if you like. So that green layer has been added. Now we can also, of course, look at the way that that layer is blended. So we have different ways of blending that layer in, as you're probably already familiar with. I think to begin with, I'm just going to go for screen. And I should undo that because I've inadvertently been, just double check, I've not been operating on the wrong layer. There we go. It's got overlay. There's our normal. Got our opacity. So we can just feed that in as we choose. And basically we're just cutting into the image using the distortion wave filter. Lots of ways of doing it, but that's one fast and easy way. And obviously you can experiment and use the sine wave, the triangle, or the square with lots of different settings. And as I said earlier on, we were using a smart image, and one of the values of using a smart image is that if you do this, I'm going to go right to the very background image now, which is important because that was the original smart image. They're all copies of it. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to choose Replace Contents. And now from my images, which I'm just going to quickly sift through, photography 18, I have to choose something from the same batch just so that I have roughly the same sizes. I'm going to choose a completely different image, and here it is. I think it's pretty much the same size. Sometimes you do this and the sizes are slightly different and you get some quite different effects. So I'll put a different image in there, and all the filters that we've currently used will still enact the same qualities on the incoming image as they do on this image. So you can very quickly generate all manner of interesting cut-ups, and disruptions to your images by making sure that the original image is a smart image or a smart object, allowing you to then at any point to go in, replace the contents, choose something completely different, which I'll do one more time, just to show how it generates a new set of abstractions, if you like. Okay, when this image comes through, I'll just put a halt to it. There we go. I'll just isolate those layers one more time so you can see them. So the incoming image is actually a lot bigger than the original. So there is some disruption, but I can still get to the individual channels and still activate them and exchange and move and use the filters that we had originally. Okay, so we've had a quick look at using a smart object and being able to replace the content with that smart object, duplicating the layers, using the layer styles by double-clicking on each of the layers. And in the layer styles, we've been isolating individual channels. And then we've been using a filter, which is the distort and wave filter. And in this instance, we just used the square type, but as I say, you can go ahead and experiment with other types and different numbers of generators. Okay, that'll do it for now. Thanks very much.